The maid served the wrong guest. The millionaire revealed the whole restaurant was testing her integrity. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. Mary had always been dedicated to her work at the fine dining restaurant. It wasn't the most glamorous job, but it paid the bills. Her uniform, though perfectly pressed, never quite fit the luxury of the surroundings. The gold accents on the walls, the soft clinking of silverware, and the hum of soft conversation reminded her daily that she didn't belong in this world of wealth. She had bigger dreams, but for now, she was just doing her best to make ends meet. On a quiet Thursday evening, Mary's shift started as usual. She was assigned to serve a few tables in the back section of the restaurant. Her hands were a bit cold, the winter chill seeping through her thin jacket, but she pushed it aside as she walked toward table 7, where a man sat alone, absorbed in his phone. She smiled politely, adjusting her apron and pulling out the chair. "Hi, you must be Kevin," she said, trying to sound confident despite the knot in her stomach. The man looked up, blinking in surprise, his dark eyes meeting hers. For a moment, he seemed confused, but then he smiled and gestured for her to sit. "Right, blind dates are something else," he replied with a slight chuckle. Mary laughed nervously, thinking he was just shy, the way some men could be on blind dates. As she took her seat, she kept talking, the words flowing out of her to fill the awkward silence. "Don't worry, I can talk enough for both of us," she said, trying to lighten the mood. She noticed he didn't respond much, but he didn't seem uncomfortable either, just quiet. After a few minutes of small talk, she finally asked, "What do you do?" He glanced up from his phone again, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "I work in tech." "Oh, like coding and apps and stuff?" she asked, realizing how little she knew about the field. He just nodded, keeping the conversation light. For a while, their exchange was easy enough. She told him about her job at the restaurant, how she juggled her shifts with trying to pay rent and keep up with her passion for painting. He seemed interested, but he didn't say much. As the evening went on, Mary's thoughts started to wander. She caught herself thinking that, for once, this conversation didn't feel like a blind date, but just a normal conversation with a person. It was refreshing in a way. That was until her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, her stomach sinking as she saw the text. "Hey Mary, I'm at table 7. I'm looking forward to meeting you. Kevin." Mary froze. Her face turned beet red as she realized her mistake. "You're not Kevin, are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The man across from her blinked, his eyes wide with understanding. "No, I'm not," he said quietly, then a flicker of amusement crossed his face. "But it's okay." Embarrassed, Mary quickly stood, muttering apologies. "I'm so sorry. I thought you were someone else." She grabbed her coat, her face burning, but before she could leave, the man stood too. "It's really no big deal," he said. "You didn't know?" She hesitated, looking at him one last time, unsure if she should just leave or stay. The man smiled gently. "But it was nice to meet you," he added. With a final glance, Mary hurried out the door, her heart pounding in her chest. As she rushed through the cold streets, she couldn't help but wonder who he really was. But her embarrassment was too much to think about anything else. What she didn't know was that the man, James Anderson, wasn't just any regular person. He wasn't a shy, awkward date, but instead, he was the owner of the restaurant and the millionaire who had been observing her every move, testing her integrity. Little did Mary know, her act of kindness and honesty in that moment would change her life forever. Mary had barely recovered from her embarrassment when she received a message from the restaurant. Her heart sank as she opened the text. "Can you come to the office at 3 p.m. today? James Anderson wants to speak with you." She stared at the message for a moment, wondering why the owner of the restaurant, a man she had never formally met, wanted to speak with her. The rest of the day passed in a blur. She tried to focus on her work, but her mind kept drifting back to the strange encounter. Was it possible that she had made such a huge mistake? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the clock ticking away the minutes. 3 p.m. came faster than she anticipated, and with a nervous breath, she grabbed her coat and left the restaurant. The office was located in a sleek, modern building just a few blocks away. As Mary walked through the lobby, she felt a sense of unease settle over her. The space was elegant but cold, much like the people who typically occupied it. She took the elevator to the top floor and walked down a long hallway, her footsteps echoing in the silence. When she reached the office, the door was open, and James was sitting behind a large desk. His expression was unreadable as he motioned for her to sit. "Mary, please have a seat," he said, his voice smooth and calm. She sat down, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I wanted to talk to you about something important," he began, his gaze steady. "Last night, when you thought I was someone else, you showed something I value greatly, integrity." Mary blinked, surprised by his words. I'm sorry about that. I really didn't mean to cause any trouble." "It's not about the mistake," he said with a slight smile. "It's about how you handled it. Most people would have just lied and pretended, but you didn't. You admitted your mistake and left without making a scene. That's rare, and that's why I'm here." Mary's confusion only deepened. "I don't understand. Why are you telling me this?" James leaned forward, his eyes locking with hers. "I've been watching you for a while. You're exactly the kind of person I need. Someone who values honesty and hard work." Mary could hardly believe what she was hearing. Was this some kind of joke? I don't know what you mean," she stammered. James smiled. "I'm offering you an opportunity. I want you to join my team." She shook her head, still unsure if this was real. "Join your team? But I'm just a waitress." "Not just a waitress," he said. "You have more potential than you realize. I've seen how you interact with the customers, how you handle pressure, and most importantly, how you treat people. I'm offering you a chance to work in my company, to have a real career. It's up to you, but I believe you can make a difference." Mary was stunned into silence. The thought of leaving her job, of stepping into a completely different world, felt overwhelming. She was used to serving tables, not managing corporate projects. "But I don't know anything about working in an office or anything like that," she said quietly. James nodded. "That's why I'll train you. I believe in giving people a chance to grow. If you're willing to put in the effort, I'll help you every step of the way." Mary felt a knot in her stomach. Could she really do this? Could she leave behind everything she knew for something so uncertain? But then, she thought about her mother, who was always struggling to pay the bills, and her own dreams of becoming something more than just a waitress. The thought of a better future, of not having to worry about rent or bills anymore, was tempting. "I don't know," she whispered. James leaned back in his chair, his expression softening. "Take your time. But remember, opportunities like this don't come around every day." Mary left the office that day with her mind racing. She had a decision to make, one that would change her life forever. Could she take the leap into the unknown, or would she stay in the comfort of what she knew? The choice was hers, but one thing was certain. She couldn't ignore the feeling that this might be her chance to finally create the life she had always dreamed of. Mary spent the next few days torn. James' offer weighed heavily on her mind, and the more she thought about it, the more the idea seemed both impossible and exhilarating. The job she had at the restaurant was steady, familiar, but it was also just a job, nothing more. Her dreams of becoming something more, something greater than she was, started to feel closer, but so far out of reach. One evening, she walked home after her shift, the cold air biting at her cheeks. She walked slowly, letting her thoughts wander as she passed the familiar streetlights and empty sidewalks. It was quiet, the kind of peace she never got to experience while working at the restaurant. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was a text from James. "We have a charity event this Saturday. I'd like you to come and see what my company is really about. I think you'll enjoy it. Let me know if you can make it." The message felt like another test, another reminder that she had to make a decision. A charity event? She wasn't sure what to expect, but she knew it would give her a glimpse into James' world. She hadn't seen him since their meeting in his office, and a small part of her wondered if he would still be as kind, as supportive. The idea of stepping into his world, a world so different from her own, made her nervous. What would she even wear? Her clothes were nothing compared to the expensive suits she knew people at the event would wear. But at the same time, she realized, this could be her chance to see the world she could have, the future she had been dreaming about. She hesitated, but only for a moment. "I'll be there," she typed back, feeling a small spark of hope ignite in her chest. On the day of the event, Mary did her best to dress up. She borrowed a simple black dress from a friend, and although it wasn't extravagant, it made her feel a little more confident. As she walked into the event, the grand ballroom took her breath away. The crystal chandeliers, the soft hum of elegant conversation, and the rich scent of flowers and fine food filled the air. She felt like an outsider, but she also felt something else: curiosity. The people here were sophisticated, well-dressed, and confident. As she scanned the room, she saw James talking to a group of business people. He was charming, with a smile that seemed to light up the room. When he caught her gaze, he excused himself from the group and walked over to her. "I'm glad you could make it," he said warmly, his voice soft but carrying an air of authority. "I hope you're enjoying yourself so far." Mary nodded, a little, nervous but trying to smile. It's amazing. Everything's so beautiful." James smiled, looking around. "This is just one side of the company, Mary. The real work happens behind the scenes, helping people who need it most. This event raises money for the community, for kids who wouldn't have a chance without support." Mary nodded, impressed by how genuine his words were. She had heard of his company, of course, but hearing him speak about it with such passion made her admire him even more. She had only seen one side of James before, but now, seeing him with the people he worked with, she was starting to understand why he was different from the men she usually encountered. He was kind. He cared. And that kindness, that sincerity, made her feel like maybe she wasn't so out of place here after all. Throughout the night, James introduced her to a few people, and Mary began to feel more comfortable. The tension she had felt earlier in the evening started to fade. She even had a few laughs and enjoyed some of the conversations. But as the event drew to a close, James took her aside again. "I'm glad you came, Mary," he said, his tone soft and genuine. "This is the kind of world I want to share with people who are willing to work hard and make a difference. You have that potential. I see it in you." Mary didn't know what to say. She had come here unsure, but now, she felt a strange sense of belonging, a sense that maybe this was the path she was meant to take. She had always dreamed of more than just surviving. She wanted to thrive, to make a difference, and maybe, just maybe, this was her chance. As she left the event that night, her heart felt lighter than it had in a long time. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time in a while, she felt like she could take the next step toward something greater. The world James had shown her was full of opportunities. All she had to do was take a chance. Mary spent the next few days reflecting on everything that had happened. The charity event had been a turning point. James had shown her a world she never thought she could be part of, and his words about her potential lingered in her mind. She couldn't help but wonder if she was ready to take that leap. She had always dreamed of something bigger, but she never imagined it would come so suddenly, so unexpectedly. The next morning, as she prepared for another shift at the restaurant, her phone buzzed with a message from James. "Let's meet tomorrow for lunch. I'd like to discuss the next steps." A wave of nervous energy washed over her. She wasn't sure what to expect, but the offer still felt surreal. The day passed slowly, with Mary trying to focus on her work, but her mind kept wandering back to James and his offer. The more she thought about it, the more she realized how much she wanted this change. She didn't want to stay stuck in a cycle of low-paying jobs and missed opportunities. She wanted to grow, to find a place where she could contribute meaningfully. As the clock neared noon the next day, Mary arrived at the small cafe where she and James had arranged to meet. Her nerves were on edge, but she forced herself to take a deep breath as she stepped inside. James was already there, sitting at a corner table with a warm smile. "I'm glad you could make it," he said as she approached. "Please, have a seat." She sat down, still feeling out of place in this sophisticated setting, but James quickly put her at ease. "I've been thinking a lot about our conversation," he began, "and I want to give you a chance. Not just as an employee, but as a partner in a project I'm starting." Mary's eyes widened in surprise. "A project?" she asked. James nodded. "Yes, a nonprofit initiative that helps young artists get the support they need to pursue their passions. I know you've always dreamed of opening an art studio, and I believe you could play a major role in this project. But it's going to take dedication, passion, and a willingness to learn." Mary's heart skipped a beat. This was the opportunity she had been waiting for, but it felt so overwhelming. "I don't know if I'm qualified for something like this," she said quietly. James smiled gently. "That's why I'm here. I believe in people who have the right heart, the right spirit. You may not have experience running a nonprofit, but you have something more important, a passion for helping others and a desire to make a difference. Mary sat back in her chair, absorbing his words. She had never considered herself a leader, but maybe this was her chance to grow into that role. She had always been the one working behind the scenes, helping others, but never stepping into the spotlight. Could she really do this? Could she lead a project that could change people's lives? James seemed to sense her hesitation. I'm not asking you to jump in right away, he continued. We'll start slow, with training and guidance. But I need someone I can trust, someone who can carry the vision forward. Mary looked at him, feeling a sense of responsibility settle over her. This was more than just a job. It was a chance to make a real impact. She knew this could be the turning point in her life. I'll do it, she said, her voice filled with conviction. James' eyes lit up. I'm glad to hear that. We're going to do great things together. As Mary left the cafe, she felt a new sense of purpose. She wasn't just stepping into a new job. She was stepping into a future she had always dreamed of. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she was ready. She had the support of someone who believed in her, and that was all she needed to take the next step. This was her chance to finally create the life she had always wanted, and she wasn't going to waste it. Mary walked into the nonprofit office for the first time, her heart racing with excitement and nerves. It was a small, humble space, nothing like the sleek corporate offices she had seen at the charity event, but it was warm. The walls were covered with artwork, much of it from local youth, and the air smelled faintly of coffee and old books. James greeted her with a smile as she entered, his presence reassuring. Welcome to the team, he said, gesturing to a small desk set up in the corner. This will be your space. She nodded, still feeling a bit out of place, but there was something comforting about the simplicity of it all. It felt like the beginning of something new, something real. Over the next few weeks, Mary dove into her work. James showed her the ropes, guiding her through the various programs the nonprofit supported. She was given tasks like organizing events, reaching out to artists for collaborations, and managing the intake of donations. Each day was a new challenge, and Mary thrived on it. The sense of purpose she felt now was unlike anything she had ever experienced. No longer just serving food at a restaurant. She was helping build something that could make a difference in people's lives. The work wasn't always glamorous. Sometimes it was tedious, like sorting through piles of paperwork or coordinating last-minute changes. But Mary found satisfaction in it. There was a sense of fulfillment she hadn't realized she was missing. One afternoon, after a particularly long day of planning a charity auction, James invited her to sit down with him for a chat. They were in the small conference room, sipping coffee as the late afternoon sunlight filtered in through the windows. How are you feeling about everything so far? He asked, his gaze warm but curious. It's a lot to take in, but I feel like I'm getting the hang of it, Mary replied, looking down at her hands for a moment. I didn't expect to feel so fulfilled. It's hard work, but it's different from anything I've done before. It feels like I'm actually making a difference. James smiled, clearly pleased with her response. I knew you had potential. You're doing great. His praise was a simple thing, but it meant the world to Mary. She felt a wave of gratitude toward him, not just for giving her this opportunity, but for believing in her when she hadn't believed in herself. As weeks turned into months, Mary became more and more confident in her role. She found herself taking on more responsibility, even leading a few projects of her own. One of her favorites was organizing an art show for local youth artists, something she had dreamed of doing herself but never had the resources or support to accomplish. The event was a success, with people from the community coming together to view the artwork and support the young creators. For the first time, Mary felt like she was truly part of something meaningful. The night of the art show, as Mary stood in the crowded room, she couldn't help but smile. She had come so far from the shy, uncertain woman who had walked into James' office months ago. She was no longer just working for a paycheck. She was helping create opportunities for others, giving them the chance to chase their dreams just like she had always wanted. As she looked around the room at the excited faces, she felt a deep sense of pride. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was a part of something bigger. When the night wound down, James approached her, his eyes bright with approval. I knew you could do it, he said, his tone full of pride. Mary smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment that she had never experienced before. "Thank you for giving me the chance," she replied, her voice sincere. James nodded. "You've earned it, Mary. This is just the beginning." As she left the event that night, the sense of fulfillment she felt stayed with her. The future was no longer uncertain. She knew she had a place in it now. It wasn't about the fancy offices or the lavish events. It was about the difference she was making, one person at a time. Mary stood in front of the mirror, her reflection showing the woman she had become, strong, confident, and ready for whatever came next. The events of the past months felt like a blur, but in a good way. She had stepped into a new life, one that was full of opportunities and challenges. The world she had once only dreamed about was now within her reach. She had proven herself at the nonprofit, successfully managing several projects, and building relationships with people who shared her vision. The pride she felt every time she helped someone, whether it was a young artist finding their voice or a community member offering support, was unlike anything she had experienced before. James had been a constant presence in her life, offering guidance, encouragement, and the belief that she was capable of achieving more. Their professional relationship had evolved into a strong friendship, one that Mary deeply appreciated. But as time passed, Mary couldn't help but notice a change in herself. She found herself thinking about James more and more, not just as her boss, but as someone she admired and respected on a deeper level. She had always been focused on her goals, on proving her worth, but now, she found herself questioning her feelings. Could it be possible that her growing admiration for James was something more? As she sat in her small apartment one evening, sipping on a cup of tea, her phone buzzed with a message from him. "We're hosting another event next week, and I'd love for you to take the lead on this one. Let me know if you're up for the challenge." She smiled as she read the message, but there was a slight unease in her chest. The last few weeks had been intense, and the thought of taking on more responsibility made her feel both excited and anxious. She wanted to say yes, but there was a part of her that hesitated. The idea of stepping up even further, taking on more of the spotlight, made her feel like she was on the edge of something bigger. Was she ready for that? The next morning, she met with James at the office. He was already there, reviewing some documents. When he looked up and saw her, he smiled warmly. "I was hoping you'd come in today. We've got big plans for the event, and I know you're the right person to help us execute it." His confidence in her made her heart swell. "I'll do it," she said, a surge of determination rising in her. James nodded, his eyes twinkling with approval. "I knew I could count on you. You've come a long way, Mary. This is your chance to show everyone what you're capable of." As the days leading up to the event passed, Mary worked tirelessly. The pressure mounted, but with each task she completed, she felt more confident in her abilities. She was organizing everything, from the guest list to the venue setup, ensuring that every detail was perfect. The sense of pride she felt as the event started to come together was indescribable. When the day of the event arrived, she stood at the entrance, watching as the guests began to arrive. The room was filled with familiar faces, all there to support the cause she had been working on. The event was a success, not just in terms of fundraising, but in the way it brought the community together. As Mary looked around the room, she realized how far she had come. She was no longer just the quiet girl working in the background. She was someone who had earned her place, who had made a real difference. When the night came to a close, James approached her, his expression one of pride and admiration. "You did an amazing job," he said, his voice low but sincere. Mary smiled, feeling a sense of warmth spread through her. "I couldn't have done it without your support," she replied, grateful for everything he had done to help her get here. As the crowd began to disperse, Mary stayed behind for a moment, reflecting on the journey she had taken. She had gone from being uncertain about her future to leading a project that touched so many lives. But it wasn't just about the work, it was about the person she had become. She had found confidence, purpose, and a sense of belonging. And maybe, just maybe, she had found something else along the way. As she turned to leave the venue, her heart racing with a new excitement, she couldn't help but wonder what the future would hold. She had come so far, but this was just the beginning. Mary sat in her small apartment that evening, staring out the window at the city lights. It was hard to believe how much had changed in such a short time. The woman who had once been unsure of her future was now leading a successful nonprofit project. The world felt different, more open, and full of possibilities. But despite her success, there was a nagging feeling in her chest that she couldn't quite shake. It had started slowly, a whisper in the back of her mind that had grown louder with each passing day. She couldn't stop thinking about James. It wasn't just admiration for his kindness and professionalism. It was something deeper. As much as she tried to push it away, the truth was undeniable. She was developing feelings for him. At first, she had convinced herself it was just respect, but now, standing on the edge of a future she had once only dreamed of, she realized it was more. The problem, however, was that James had always kept their relationship professional. He had been a mentor, a guide, and a friend. He had never given her any indication that he saw her as anything more than that. Still, Mary couldn't ignore how he made her feel, how his encouragement and support had made her believe in herself in a way she never had before. The tension she had been feeling for weeks came to a head one Friday afternoon. They had been working late on a new project proposal, and as the office emptied, James asked her to stay behind. "Mary, can you stay for a minute?" he asked, his voice steady but soft. She nodded, her heart racing. As the door closed behind the last employee, the two of them were alone in the quiet office. James turned to her, his gaze gentle but intense. "I've been meaning to talk to you about something," he began. "About the future and about us." Mary's breath caught in her throat. She wasn't sure what she had expected, but this wasn't it. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. James hesitated for a moment, his eyes searching hers. "Mary, I know how much you've grown in this role, and I've watched you transform into someone I'm incredibly proud of. But I also know there's something more between us. I'm not blind to it." The words hung in the air between them, thick with meaning. Mary's heart was racing now. "What are you saying?" she asked, her voice shaky. James stepped closer, his expression softening. "I'm saying that I care about you, more than I probably should. I've been trying to ignore it, but it's clear that you feel the same way." Mary's mind spun, her emotions a whirlwind. She had known something was there, but hearing him say it out loud was like a weight lifting off her shoulders. "James, her words faltered as she tried to process what he was saying. "I didn't know how to approach this. I didn't want to risk our working relationship, but I couldn't keep pretending I didn't feel something." He reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "I want to explore what this could be. I've been afraid to, but I can't ignore it any longer." Mary looked down at their joined hands, feeling a rush of warmth spread through her chest. She had always believed in the idea of a professional boundary, but in this moment, it felt like the lines were blurring in the best possible way. "I care about you too," she finally said, her voice steady now. "But I don't want to jeopardize everything we've worked for. This, what we have, has always been so important to me." James nodded, his thumb brushing over her hand in a comforting gesture. "I understand, Mary. I want you to know that whatever happens, I respect you. If we decide to take this step, we'll do it in a way that works for both of us." Mary took a deep breath, the weight of the moment settling in her chest. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she was in control of her own destiny. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was someone who could make her own choices, who had the power to decide what her future would look like. And maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of a new chapter in her life, one where love and career could coexist. She squeezed his hand gently, a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "Let's take that step," she said softly. James smiled in return, his eyes lighting up with a mixture of relief and joy. "I've been waiting for you to say that." The future still seemed uncertain in many ways, but for the first time in a long time, Mary felt like she was walking toward it with someone who cared about her, someone who saw her for who she truly was. It wasn't just about work anymore. It was about building something real, together. Mary sat in her small, cozy apartment, looking around at the space she had slowly begun to call her own. The months that had passed since her decision to join James' nonprofit felt like a whirlwind, and she had never been more certain that she had made the right choice. The work was fulfilling, but it was the people, the connections, and the sense of purpose that made everything worth it. She had grown in ways she hadn't thought possible. James had been an incredible mentor, and now, he was more than that. He was someone she cared for deeply. Their relationship had developed naturally, starting as colleagues and slowly evolving into something stronger. The trust between them was undeniable. There was no pretending, no games, just genuine connection. But even as things between them were going so well, Mary still had moments of doubt. It was hard to shake the feeling that there was something more she needed to do with her life. She loved the nonprofit work, but deep down, she still dreamed of opening her own art studio, a place where young artists could find a voice and express themselves freely. She had always kept that dream in the back of her mind, thinking it was too big, too far out of reach. But as she grew more comfortable in her new role, she realized it was a dream that deserved attention. One evening, after another successful fundraising event, Mary sat down with James to discuss some upcoming projects. As they sat across from each other at the small cafe they frequented, she couldn't help but feel a sense of peace. It was a feeling she hadn't known much of before. James was speaking about an art initiative they were launching, but Mary's mind wandered to the future she had imagined for herself. "James," she began, her voice a little hesitant, "I've been thinking a lot lately. About my own dreams. About what's next for me." James paused, looking up from the papers in front of him. "What do you mean?" he asked, his expression open and supportive. "I know I'm doing good work here, and I'm so grateful for everything I've learned and accomplished, but I've always wanted to open an art studio. A place for artists who don't have the resources or space to showcase their work. I feel like I've put that dream on hold for too long." James smiled, nodding in understanding. "I've seen how passionate you are about it, Mary. It's not something you can just ignore." Mary took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "I know it's a big step, and I don't want to lose what I've built here. But I also feel like if I don't at least try, I'll regret it." James leaned forward, his tone sincere. "You don't have to choose between your dreams and the work you're doing here. You've already proven that you can balance both. If this is what you truly want, I'm here to help however I can." Mary's heart lifted at his words. It was the support she had always craved. "Thank you," she said softly. "It means more than you know." They sat in silence for a moment, letting the weight of the conversation sink in. Mary had always feared that chasing her dream would mean abandoning the work she had come to love, but in this moment, she realized she didn't have to choose. She could have both. The next few weeks were a blur of planning, budgeting, and finding the perfect space. James continued to support her, offering advice and even connecting her with people who could help bring her vision to life. By the time she found a small building in a quiet part of town, she knew it was right. The space was perfect for an art studio, a blank canvas waiting for her to fill it with color, creativity, and possibility. As the doors to her new art studio finally opened, Mary stood outside, taking in the view of the place that would soon be home to her dreams. She had made it. She had taken the leap, and it felt better than she could have imagined. James was there, standing beside her, a proud smile on his face. "I knew you could do it," he said. "This is just the beginning, Mary. I'm so proud of you." Mary smiled back, her heart full. She had worked so hard to get here, but she knew it wasn't just about the success or the recognition. It was about the people who had helped her along the way, the ones who had believed in her even when she didn't believe in herself. And it was about the new chapter she was opening for herself. As she stood there with James, she realized that no dream was too big if you had the right support and the courage to pursue it. This was just the beginning. She was ready to see where it would take her. Months passed, and Mary's art studio began to thrive. The space was everything she had hoped for, alive with creativity and filled with the work of aspiring artists who had found a place to grow. The walls, once bare, now showcased colorful paintings, intricate sculptures, and inspiring photographs. The community responded, and soon enough, Mary had more students than she could have imagined. It wasn't just the art that brought them in, but her dedication, her genuine care for each artist that walked through her doors. She had become more than just a mentor. She had become a beacon of hope for those who didn't have a voice. Despite all of her success, though, Mary couldn't shake the feeling that there was still something missing. She had built her dream, she had a thriving business, and she had found a way to help others pursue their passions, but she felt an emptiness that she couldn't quite explain. It wasn't until one evening, as she worked late in the studio, that she realized what it was. She had built this life for herself, but she had built it alone. Yes, she had amazing people around her, students, fellow artists, and even James, but there was a part of her that longed for a deeper connection, one she couldn't find in her work or in her friends. She realized that, as much as she had come to love her independence, there was still a part of her that wanted someone to share this life with. The realization hit her like a wave, and she spent the next few days reflecting on everything. Was it possible to have both? A thriving career and a relationship that brought her joy and companionship? Her thoughts returned to James. She had pushed those feelings aside, buried them beneath her work, but now, in the quiet of her studio, she couldn't ignore them anymore. He had been there for her every step of the way, from the moment she stepped into his office all those months ago to now, supporting her in every decision she made. Their bond had only grown stronger, and Mary found herself thinking about him in a way she hadn't allowed herself to before. The next time they met, James was waiting for her at the studio, his warm smile greeting her as soon as she walked in. "I wanted to see how everything is going," he said, his voice soft but full of pride. Mary smiled, grateful for his unwavering support. "It's going great," she replied. "Better than I ever expected." James nodded, his eyes softening as he looked at her. "I'm really proud of you, Mary. You've built something amazing here." Mary paused for a moment, feeling the weight of her emotions. She took a deep breath before speaking, her voice steady but vulnerable. "James, I've been thinking a lot lately. About everything. About us." He raised an eyebrow, a gentle curiosity in his expression. "What do you mean?" Mary looked into his eyes, her heart pounding. "I've built this studio. I've created this life for myself, and I'm proud of what I've accomplished. But I realize now that I don't want to do it alone anymore. I want to share this with someone who understands, someone who believes in me and what I'm doing." James took a step closer, his hand reaching out to gently touch hers. "Mary, I've always believed in you. I've watched you grow, and I've seen your passion and your heart. I want to be part of this journey with you. I want to share in everything you've worked for." Mary's breath caught in her throat. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the moment she realized that the connection she felt with James wasn't just about their work together. It was something deeper, something real. "I want that too," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. "I want to share my life with you." James smiled, the warmth in his eyes reflecting the love he felt. "Then let's do it, Mary. Let's build something even greater together." That night, as Mary walked home, she felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The future was no longer something to be feared or uncertain about. It was a future she was ready to embrace, with James by her side. She had built a life she was proud of, and now, with the love and support of someone who truly understood her, she was ready to take the next step. This was only the beginning of something even more beautiful, and Mary knew she was ready for whatever came next.